Welcome back, guys. We have the 3rd gen Grom finished up, and we're going to get out on our first ride. I literally ran this around the block one time to get my speedometer calibrated, and we're going to do a range test, because why not? We're going to stick to city driving, so let's get into this. So we've built a few e-Groms now, and I need to get a good baseline to tell people exactly what they're getting into for practical mileage. I weigh about 230 pounds. And I think the best way to do a mileage breakdown is going to be testing in practical real world applications. So in my case, riding around city roads, keeping it, I'd say 25 to 45 with stops. That gives me a good idea for regen, how that's going to impact mileage. So I'll break that down into a city ride and then a rural ride. Hypothetically, your rural ride should always be 45 plus up to, 65 highway speeds. And you're going to get less range because you're not going to have your constant rev out of riding full speed without braking and regenning that battery. So this will give us a good real world application for anyone that's interested in the kit, as well as just kind of learning about it. And, half of the fun of going electric is being able to share that with the world in a different way when you haven't actually experienced electric. If you landed on this video because you wanted to see how fast this bike goes, I'm sorry, this isn't the video for you. We are strictly going to be jumping around, kind of sharing our thoughts on this bike as a whole, as well as reviewing that overall range for city riding. The one thing I noticed right away with the Gen 3 versus the SF e-Grom is not having that seat detent is a big deal. It's something about the instant torque of this. The fact that your butt can slide around is a problem, and I don't know. I don't really like it. It's the best way to describe these swaps is violent. And I tune them very conservatively, but if they're in the wrong hands, it could be really dangerous. Really dangerous. We do have it set in speed level 1. You can see on the right here we have a 1, 2, and a 3. And that basically picks your current output. I tune everything to a max of 18 kilowatts, which is very conservative. I could easily push this up to 25. However, I honestly don't think anything over 18 on a Grom is really just unnecessary and honestly a liability if I'm going to try to sell these. So, staying in speed level 1 to test. The hardest part of doing these speed tests is keeping out of it. Having the ability to just switch this over to 3 or press the super mode on a dime and just get it. This is me telling you, I'm going to be disciplined this ride, and I am not leaving speed level 1 because we need to test this for science. I often talk about my love for small bikes, and it's true. I'm addicted to riding small bikes, but it's something about having that small bike platform, but having that big bike power, and these e-swaps do that 1,000,000% over. It just inspires confidence. You don't feel like you're going to die everywhere you go, especially when I'm riding alone. I honestly feel like, hey, if I need to, I can speed past whoever and not get hit, because that's kind of important. This 3rd gen build was really fun. I got to really stick to the idea that I want this to be pretty stock appearing, and I think we nailed that on the head. It's just a beautiful color, and the color speaks for itself, so I don't really need a bunch of modifications to be able to show this thing off and to appreciate it. So if you're new to the electric world, or maybe you're interested in the kit, or maybe you just kind of stumbled on this channel just because you like Honda Groms, walking you through the idea of electric is very fun, but the idea of regen braking is something that in the electric world is very, very important because we don't have that, I guess, infinite mileage if you just stop at a gas station. So the idea of regen braking is that whenever you come to a stop, like I'm doing now, you're converting that kinetic energy from moving into potential energy back into the battery. It's essentially taking the braking force from the motor of you stopping and converting that back into battery energy. And why is that important? It's important because that allows you to get longer range in city riding. In fact, because you're doing a lot more stopping during city riding, you should significantly see a boost in range, which is why this test specifically, I'm literally going to be driving out, driving back, riding out, riding back, doing this same stretch with a few stops in the middle, all of which is about 35, just for the name of science, because it's important that we have those hard numbers for testing. I don't have a lab or a team of scientists to do these tests for me, so staying disciplined and be able to offer to the community a real world application on what range is like is very important. We've all bought something where somebody promises us something, right? This electric manufacturer sells a battery that says, hey, you can get 30 miles on this battery, but realistically, you get it to your house and you get 15. And you're like, why the heck did I even buy this? This was a waste of money. And so that's exactly what I'm trying to avoid here. I want people to know what they're getting into, because it's really important to me. I take a lot of pride in building these, and I want people to know with confidence what they're getting and what they're getting into and what that means for them and their riding styles. The chain drive has a really nice little whine to it that I really like over just running the belt drive that we had on the E-Ruck. And it's at this point you might be wondering, why would I want this bike? You, as a potential watcher, why would you swap electric, or why would you want an electric bike? Say you're new to the electric world. Well, one, they're just a riot. You take that fact that the Grom in itself is already fun, and then you add that instantaneous torque value to it, and the fact that you can just jump on, not worry about normal maintenance, oil changes. Literally, all you have to do is plug it into a wall. It's really nice. Really nice. And you pack that into a small bike like this, and it's just a fun time. Now, I wouldn't recommend this an electric swap for just anyone. Say, if this is your only bike, the only way I would see that as a good application is if this bike is going to be something that you're not really going on rides with friends or, outside of your city, mainly because you're limited to that range. If your friends go, hey, I want to go to this next town over or wherever, depending on your riding style or where you may be, that may limit you, and thus you'd have to essentially decline those offers, which sucks. The whole premise of riding a bike is to be able to have those memories to ride with friends, and maybe you are a lone rider, but at least for the most vast majority of people, they like to have that interaction and to be able to go places. And so I don't really think for most people the electric kits would make sense for a sole bike owner. But if you have multiple bikes, then absolutely, because you have that one that is your gasser, myself included. I have the CBR Grom, and that's always my long distance bike that I'll take anywhere. And then these, I I have not touched any of the gas products since I've had the electric swaps. The only time I will touch the gas ones is if I go on road rallies, if I go on poker runs, or go on longer trips, like when we take it down to the Dragon. We'll have these bikes, the gas bikes, to take down there. But other than that, it's electric all the time. Once you feel how fun these are, wah! And that's speed level 1. I'm already doing 40. It's instantaneous. It's a little crack of a throttle. Once you feel that, it's it's addicting. I always tell people I drank the Kool-Aid, and if you've been here before, you've heard me say it. I've drank the electric Kool-Aid. Drink it with me, please. Please. One of the big concerns I've had in going electric is definitely how to stay visible to people. You hear more and more increasingly of people getting into accidents. Maybe your friends or your family have gotten into a bad motorcycle accident. Heck, just last week, my buddy Tyler got really messed up on a hit and run. Hit and run. Like, can you imagine? And he's doing great. Thank God he didn't die. Like, oh my God. But, you hear about this all the time. And so obviously it raises question, can you be safe on electric? And I would argue that those same people more than likely would hit you if you were on electric or not. So it's just taking the steps that you can to make sure you're being safe. So one of the things that I did on this bike, or just any electric bike, is because I don't have the noise of a pipe, I put one of those brake lights on the back of my helmet, and it is really bright. I'm very happy with it. Obviously, I've not gotten hit yet. Hopefully I never do. But anything you can do to mitigate liability, to make sure that you're just having a good day, because no one wants that. And so depending on how many times I edit out this intersection and where exactly I go throughout the city, you may see different parts of this ride over and over again as I essentially keep to that under 45 mile an hour routes. I know in my initial thought process, I wanted to be able to have a 100-mile range, but it became more and more apparent as I was doing more research and actually had the battery in front of me and what it weighed and how it would fit, is a 100-mile battery is just not feasible for the size restraints that you have on a Honda Grom, unfortunately. So I'm hopeful that with the extended range battery, we can hit about 80. And, that still might not be enough for a lot of people, but I'm very happy with that. realistically for around town, the E-Ruck, which I beat on, gets 40 to 50 on a bad day. And so knowing that I can go around town safely on that, the goal is to 100% beat that, but it kind of gives me a good baseline for the E-Ruck could fit it, so what could I fit into the Groms? Now, it's easy to discount the fact that 40 to 50 miles isn't that far, and I agree. But that is also me doing upwards to 80, 85 on this bike. So with that being said, all things considering, I think that's really good. And I think that toning that down, you're drawing a lot less power out of the bike when you're going half that speed. So when you're going half that speed, ultimately, that translates to longer range. If you guys have a better idea for out in the world application for how I should test these bikes to kind of tell the world about what they can do, let me know. Because ultimately, the public feedback is very important to me, because if I'm going to be selling these kits, I want people to like them and know what they're getting 1,000,000%. The last thing I ever want is for somebody to be let down based on a purchase. We've all done that, right? You bought something and you're like, this was a complete waste of money. So I don't want to be that person or that company for somebody. I'm not trying to do that. I'm not doing this for the money. I simply want to enjoy doing it and enjoy sharing it with the world. And that's what it allows me to do. So I think that by breaking things down into a city, Jesus Christ, go closer to me. Oh my God. So I think breaking this down into a city ride application and a rural ride application gives a lot of people a good idea for their specific, how they ride, where they're at, that kind of thing. And it allows me also to kind of group mile per hour ranges so that we can do, say, 45 and under versus 45 and up, and what that means for mileage. I know in looking through all of the e-bike community stuff, a lot of it is like X amount of range at 20 miles an hour, or you'll have X amount of range at 40 mile an hour. So in this case, these obviously do a lot more than that. So kind of breaking that down into rural or city made sense to me. It's really interesting when you put yourself into the perspective of gas versus electric, because normally when you think about a gas powered engine, whenever you stop, that's almost a bad thing, because then you have to throttle to get going, so you're not maintaining that speed. Versus with electric, anytime you stop, it's almost helpful, because you're not outputting that current or otherwise using that battery energy, and you're also building energy when you stop. So it's kind of twofold. It's really good, versus on a gas bike or vehicle, it's not the same way. We're gonna bust a Yui here. Yeah. I love when people wave me on. It's the best. As a biker, anyone that rides motorcycles can relate to that. Like, it is just really nice when people wholeheartedly understand the situation and don't want you to die. Because anytime somebody doesn't want me to die, I can appreciate them and that entire situation. Now, there is that argument to be made that some people just genuinely don't know what's going on. So you do have to still pay attention, because even if somebody waves you on, you can still get hit and, again, die. So don't do that. Be aware of your surroundings, obviously. Oh, we are going to get so sick of this same stretch of road, but for science! Also, this would be a great point to tell you that this will be a demo bike for everyone to ride at the Smoky Mountain Small Bore Rally. So, if you do not know what the Smoky Mountain Small Bore Rally is, check it out, Google it, go on Facebook, find it. It's really fun. That old person almost didn't see me. That's cool. And go check it out, because I want to share this with the world. And likewise, even if you go down there and don't ride this, that event is a blast. The amount of memories that I've made, the amount of friendships and people that have become friends that were strangers, just running into them and talking and all that, I definitely would recommend to everyone at all times. Oh yes, another big bike coming up around me. I can hear it. This is the best. Does he pull up next to me? It's something big. That's sweet. Oh, big old bike. I always love these big Harley riders. Always have these like massive beards. It's just part of a territory, I think. I also noticed there must be a thing within Harley riders that whenever they're riding, they get real weird if you pass them. I don't know if that's like a you're not supposed to do it, or why that is, but I got one guy that specifically was very, very angry, like to the point where I could have sworn if I would have got off my bike, he would have followed me and tried to beat me up. So, like, I don't know what was going on there, but that definitely happened. Man, I'll tell you, this suspension is a lot more forgiving than the SF, which makes sense. That thing slammed on its nuts, but it's funny when you go back and forth between the two. This is like riding on a cloud. Oh, another thing with electric, I don't feel confident riding one-handed. So it's a thing, anyone that's ride motorcycles knows that it's a lot more comfortable to ride one-handed a lot of times if you're in longer distances. But anytime I lift up my left hand from an electric bike, it's dangerous because at any given point, if you just hit a little bump and you blip that throttle, it's going to run from you. And it's scary. I've had it happen on multiple occasions to the point where I really do not like to lift my left hand from an electric bike anymore. You'll learn real quick. You'll learn real quick. So yeah, we are at 9.5 miles right now, and it looks like the battery bar didn't even move. So we'll keep an eye on it every time we come to a stop. I really got to fix the way this gauge cluster is. It's not very bright, so you have to angle it a certain way, and if it's out of angle, I have to lean back like this to see the speedometer, which, you know, is two-sided. I almost never look at my speed when I ride, to be honest, but in terms of electric, you do have to watch it just because it is so silent. I've caught myself speeding a handful of times very, very easily. Pretty chilly out. Oh my goodness. Normally 60 degrees is my direct cutoff. I'm a very fair weather rider. It's about 50 today in Ohio, and that 10 degrees makes a huge difference. This bike has a 13-tooth front sprocket and a 49-tooth rear. So I want to say it comes out to like a 3:7 something or other ratio. A little bit higher than the SF that I did, but it gives a little bit quicker of an acceleration because of that, which is cool. Still general ballpark, same sprocket ratio that I would recommend. That 3.5 to 3.7 is kind of perfect for these bikes. If you are one of those people that love riding motorcycles just for the sole purpose of it being peaceful, I know myself, I could just get on a bike and go, regardless if I have music or anything like that. This really gives you the opportunity to get connected and kind of zone out. I know I say that kind of loosely because obviously you don't want to zone out on a motorcycle, but in that same regard, it gives you the opportunity to kind of really disconnect from the world because you're not hearing all of your motorcycle noise. It's a weird phenomenon. I really like it. Very different. Another thing that is very important to note in this video, because this is a range test, is to note that, again, I weigh 230 pounds, almost 6 foot. I think I'm like 5'11". I would probably call myself a middle to above weight range of what most Honda Grom riders are. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people that are much heavier and a lot of people that are much lighter, but that all goes to tell that depending on your exact, weight and size and how you ride, where you ride, the style, if you like to rip everywhere, your range is going to vary greatly. So it's not a one shoe fits all type deal. Everyone is going to be different, but this will give people a good baseline for, how I am and what they could expect given the circumstance. Oh, that thing is so clean. I need it. No turn on red. Okay, I'll listen this time. So I just turned on my BMS, which is basically a management system that stands for battery management system, so that I could physically see where I'm at 100%, because sometimes the display isn't truly accurate to what the BMS is reading. And I show 75%, and I've gone 16 miles. So extrapolate that out. That puts me at about 64 miles. 64 miles on a charge in city riding proper. So I'll give this a little bit more go. We'll probably run it down to say 50%, just because I don't want to spend all day going back and forth on 35 so that I'm doing the same thing every time. But if I get to 50%, then I can safely say if we ran that thing bone dry, which realistically you shouldn't do, but man, these guys are so cool. So yeah, would never recommend running your battery completely empty, but that gives you a 100% worst case, like, hey, be home by this time, or else you'll have some battery anxiety. And that's a very real thing on electric bikes. Anyone that tells you otherwise is lying to you very hard. Range anxiety is very real in motorcycles or e-bikes, anything electric. All right, guys, back at the house. Bike is in the background, and wouldn't you know it, my camera died. So cool, but not cool, because obviously I wanted to show you guys all about what happened. So let's talk about it. You can see here, and it's going to be kind of hard to see, but on my phone we have 55% battery life left? Right there in that little oval. 55%. So I'm going to go ahead and call that half just for safety, and to know that we would have then 5% left if we were to go on a longer ride at the very end of our battery. And we show 31.5 miles in the odometer on the lower right there, 31.5. So with that being said, 31.5 miles on half battery range. It's really good for city riding, I think. So that gets us about 62 miles in a practical, real-world riding through the city application. And this is on a cheaper battery. So I went ahead and used a, I don't even remember exactly what cell is in it, but it's a cheaper battery because I wanted people to have a lower entry point to get into the electric world. So that being said, the extended range battery will get roughly 25% more mileage because it is 25% bigger. It is currently on a boat in the ocean somewhere. So once it gets here, I will install that battery and we'll do some tests as well. But overall, really happy with how it performs in the city here. Again, 62 miles. I cannot complain at that. And we will catch you guys on the next one. Have a great day. Bye. Don't forget to squash the like button.